The stability of money depends on honesty. Tampering with currency is not a technical policy mistake. It is betrayal. A ruler who devalues money is no different from someone stealing from their people. And this marks the beginning of financial decay. When governments interfere excessively with money, people eventually lose faith in it. They abandon their local currency and turn to alternatives. We have seen this before, from Weimar Germany to Argentina, Venezuela, and Zimbabwe, because people no longer trust the promise behind the money. Modern inflation debates remind us of a fundamental truth. Money is, at its core, a system of belief. When belief disappears, the system stops working. Ghazali's economic worldview was not limited to money and taxation. He also understood a deeper truth about human nature. People save because they fear the future. They speculate because of greed. They cheat when they believe they will not be caught. Money is highly susceptible to manipulation because everyone justifies their actions by saying, everyone else is doing it. When exploitation becomes normalized in a society, collapse has already begun. His central insight was this: you cannot fix an economy without fixing the incentives that shape human behavior. Laws are necessary. Markets are essential. But behind them stand human beings driven by fear, desire, and ambition. If you do not design incentives that reward honesty and productivity, the system inevitably decays and consumes itself. That is why Ghazali placed such importance on the moral dimension of wealth. Unrestrained accumulation is both a spiritual loss and a social threat. He did not condemn wealth itself. The problem was wealth without purpose. Strong societies are built by those who give back more than they take. When the desire for wealth is balanced with responsibility, civilizations rise. But when that balance breaks and greed consumes everything, the system collapses under its own weight. And when collapse comes, it is not only the poor who pay the price, but also those who thought they were safe. Civilizations are built on balance. When that balance breaks, decline becomes inevitable. And perhaps this is exactly where we stand today. Ghazali's ideas are no longer ancient philosophy. They read like a modern economic report. A world of widening inequality, where money moves faster than meaning. Markets that reward speculation over production. Falling trust in institutions year after year. Inflation eroding purchasing power, and financial bubbles inflating and bursting in cycles. The problems he diagnosed 1,000 years ago are now global. His warnings about wealth accumulation echo today's debates on billionaires and tax havens. His critique of speculation resembles the world of crypto and shadow banking. His concerns about monetary distortion align with modern central banking policies. What surprises the modern reader is how little the world has actually changed. Technology has advanced, markets have accelerated, and the economy has become global. But human nature remains the same. If Ghazali were alive today, he would look at runaway debt, speculative excess, and collapsing trust in institutions, and repeat what he wrote 1,000 years ago. Where justice disappears, prosperity cannot endure. The truth is harsh. Economies do not collapse because numbers fail. They collapse because people stop trusting each other. They collapse because bad behavior is rewarded. They collapse because institutions fail to preserve the honesty that sustains markets. Human emotions, fears, and greed, not abstract equations, are what drive civilizations into crisis. Ghazali was not preaching. He was describing reality. He understood what many economists still struggle to accept. Money is not merely a mechanical object. It is a moral ecosystem. And when that system begins to collapse, the financial system collapses with it. That is why his ideas are even more relevant today. In an age of excessive debt, limitless speculation, and eroding trust, his message becomes a survival guide. When money is separated from morality, the system inevitably collapses. Understanding this is not just economics. It is a shield against the crises of the future. History may not repeat itself exactly, but it always runs over those who fail to understand it. If this video opened a new perspective for you, don't forget to subscribe. Ghazali articulated concepts that today are described as transaction costs, information asymmetry, and moral hazard, centuries before these terms existed. Another central theme in his thought was the dignity of labor. He considered work a noble and valuable human activity. In contrast, wealth acquired without effort was a moral corruption. Labor strengthens character. Deception corrupts it. Though this may sound like moral preaching, it rests on a deeply rational foundation. People produce leads, to society grows. People exploit others' labor, leads to society weakens. Ghazali also strongly criticized state interference in monetary systems. In the medieval world, rulers often debased currency by reducing the precious metal content of coins to cover budget deficits. Outwardly, the money looked the same, but in reality it contained less silver, and the public paid the hidden tax. The modern equivalent is inflation. Ghazali called this outright theft because it destroyed trust in the system, and the heaviest burden fell once again on the poor. The entire financial order became unstable. He argued that while the state had a role in the economy, it was not unlimited. Governments should protect and sustain economic order, not destabilize it for short-term gain, for an unjust ruler could destroy a country faster than any external enemy. The connection to today requires no explanation. Ghazali's warnings were not abstract theories, they were observations of lived reality. As political fragmentation spread, ruling dynasties fought for legitimacy, while local authorities increased pressure on the population to extract more revenue. As central power weakened, the economy was the first thing to be manipulated. Taxes were raised, currencies were debased, property was seized, and debts were pushed onto future generations. None of these actions solved the crisis, they only deepened it. For Ghazali, corruption spread from the top down like a poison. When rulers deceive their people, merchants feel justified in deceiving their customers. When institutions abandon honesty, individuals abandon responsibility. From palace to marketplace, the chain of trust collapses, and the economic order disintegrates. His conclusion was clear. A society can endure poverty, but it cannot endure corruption. Economic collapse is rarely caused by a lack of resources. It is caused by a collapse of trust. The invisible bond holding trade, contracts, currency, and institutions together is trust. When that bond breaks, even the wealthiest nations begin to crack. From this perspective, Ghazali's ideas gain even deeper meaning. To understand his economic thought, one must first understand his conception of money. For Ghazali, money was not an object of worship, nor a store of status or wealth. It was merely a tool, nothing more. A medium that enables exchange between people. He compared money to a mirror. A mirror has no value in itself. Its worth comes from what it reflects. Money is the same. Its power does not come from gold or silver, but from its ability to enable production, trade, and social cooperation. Many ideas embraced by modern economists were already expressed by him in the 11th century, when wealth was widely understood as land and plunder. It is here that one of his most famous economic principles emerges. Idle money is dead money. For Ghazali, wealth hidden in chests, stored away in rooms, or buried underground, was not only useless, it was harmful to society. Money that does not circulate cannot give life to the economy. Workers cannot be paid. Trade slows, and families cannot afford basic needs. This is the clogging of the economic bloodstream. He described it as freezing the circulation of society's blood. This insight feels remarkably modern, echoing critiques of inequality made by contemporary economists. But Ghazali did not only criticize greed, he also questioned the system itself. When the wealthy withdraw money from circulation, they create artificial scarcity. Crises emerge not because resources are lacking, but because the flow of money is blocked. Markets stall and prices become unstable, and once again the poor pay the highest price. This led him to another conclusion. Speculation destroys social trust. He was deeply critical of traders who manipulated prices, created artificial shortages, or profited from crises. For him, this was not clever business, it was moral decay, because there was no real production, only unearned gain. In his words, one who profits from the suffering of others feeds on corruption itself. And corruption, once it spreads, behaves like a virus. Once rooted, it consumes institutions, markets, and entire societies. If this reminds you of modern financial bubbles, predatory lending systems, or crisis profiteering, you would be right. The only difference is 900 years of time. However, Ghazali was not against profit or trade. He did not call for abandoning the world or withdrawing from commerce. On the contrary, he believed trade was essential and markets were vital to society. What he opposed was dishonest trade, lying under oath, cheating on weight, hiding defects in goods, deceiving people, because in his view, markets only function as long as people trust one another. When trust disappears, the economy inevitably collapses. Those who question the foundations of economic systems usually first encounter Adam Smith, Karl Marx, or Aristotle, remembered from their school years. Yet in the dusty pages of the Middle Ages, there lies a deeper truth quietly overlooked by Western-centered historical narratives. 1,000 years ago, long before modern capitalism or central banking systems even existed, a scholar from the Islamic world delivered a striking warning that seems to anticipate today's financial crises. According to him, the moment money loses its moral compass, societies begin to collapse not from external attacks, but from internal decay. Looking at the modern world, one might even argue that he understood us better than we understand ourselves. Welcome to the Economic Historian. Here, money, power, and history are deeply intertwined. And nothing is as simple as it first appears. To understand one of the greatest thinkers of the Islamic Golden Age, Imam Al-Ghazali, we must imagine a world that feels both familiar and distant at the same time. The year is around 1100. Europe is fragmented, impoverished, and struggling to rebuild itself from the ruins of the early Middle Ages. Meanwhile, the Islamic world stretches from Andalusia to the borders of Iran, governing a vast and flourishing civilization. Cities like Baghdad, Damascus, and Cairo are not merely populated centers, they are the financial and intellectual hubs of their age. Along trade routes, caravans loaded with spices, precious silk, fine textiles, and silver move without pause. Scholars engage in deep discussions on astronomy, law, medicine, and philosophy. Markets are vibrant, and empires are rich. Money is transforming every aspect of life at a pace society has never experienced before. It is in this complex era, where trade is booming and inequality is widening, that Abu Hamid Al-Ghazali emerges. He is a jurist, theologian, philosopher, and one of the fiercest critics of the system. Whether discussing the ultimate purpose of the soul or the functioning of an economic system, imagine a figure who speaks without hesitation and with unwavering conviction. Born in 1058 in present-day Iran, Ghazali rose rapidly to the pinnacle of intellectual life. By his mid-30s, he was already teaching at one of the most prestigious institutions in the Islamic world. What set him apart was not his titles or status, but his refusal to accept the status quo. He could see that something was going wrong in a world where wealth was accelerating and markets were expanding endlessly. A society enslaved by money, yet having lost its sense of purpose. An economy dazzling on the surface, but decaying from within. The parallels with today are impossible to ignore. Ghazali asked a question few dared to articulate at the time. What happens when a civilization becomes rich faster than it becomes wise? In seeking the answer, he turned his attention directly to money itself, the foundation of the financial system. What would later astonish Western audiences is precisely this. Ghazali cannot simply be described as a religious thinker. He was among the first to examine money both systematically and ethically. Aristotle viewed money as a practical invention. Later economists treated it as a purely mathematical variable. Ghazali, however, focused on its psychological and moral effects on human beings. He sought to understand how money shapes human behavior, trust, and the future trajectory of societies.